Imagine missing your target, watching your assassination fail, accepting that the mission is over. Then, minutes later, the man you are supposed to kill accidentally stops his car right in front of you. No chase, no second plan, just one impossible opportunity. 2 gunshots later, millions of people would eventually be dead. This is the story of the assassination that changed the world. Before we talk about the man who pulled the trigger, we need to talk about the world he pulled it in. Because the murder of Archduke Franz Ferdinand on June 28, 1914, did not cause the First World War the way a hammer causes a nail to sink. It was not simple. It was not direct. It was more like a single match dropped into a room that had been filling with gas for 40 years. To understand the explosion, you have to understand the gas. Europe in 1914 was the most heavily armed continent in human history. The great powers, Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia, had spent the previous 4 decades locked in an arms race that had produced the largest standing armies the world had ever seen. Germany alone had over 4 million men under arms. France had 3.5 million. Russia had almost 5 million. The British Navy ruled the seas with a fleet so powerful it made every other navy on Earth nervous just by existing. These armies needed justifications, so the governments of Europe built them. They constructed a web of alliances so intricate, so tightly wound, so carefully balanced, that it had stopped being a system of protection and become a system of mutual guaranteed destruction. If one nation moved, the others were legally and militarily obligated to move with them. The whole continent was a cocked gun pointed at itself. And underneath all of that, simmering for decades, was something older and more combustible than any alliance treaty: nationalism. The idea that people bound by language, culture, and blood deserved their own nations, their own flags, their own futures. In Western Europe, nationalism had already done its work. Germany was unified. Italy was unified. France was France. Britain was Britain. But in Eastern Europe, in the Balkans, in the crumbling territories of the Ottoman Empire, and the wobbling edifice of Austria-Hungary, nationalism was still raw and unfinished and violent. Dozens of ethnic groups, Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, Bosnians, Czechs, Slovaks, Poles, Romanians, all of them living inside empires that did not represent them, governed by emperors they had not chosen, fighting for identities that the maps had not yet caught up with. This was the room filling with gas, and Sarajevo was where someone lit the match. The man at the center of the story is not Gavrilo Princip, not yet. The man at the center of the story is Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne and one of the most complicated figures in early 20th century European politics. Franz Ferdinand was not a simple villain. He was not a warmonger. He was, by the standards of his time and his empire, something almost more dangerous. He was a reformer. Austria-Hungary in 1914 was a vast, unwieldy empire of 50 million people speaking a dozen languages, practicing multiple religions, and harboring a dozen different nationalist ambitions. The old Emperor Franz Joseph, who had been on the throne since 1848, governed it through a combination of bureaucratic inertia, personal authority, and the sheer exhaustion of his subjects. Franz Ferdinand had different ideas. He wanted to restructure the empire into a federation, a United States of Austria, where Slavic peoples would have genuine representation alongside Germans and Hungarians. He believed that reform was the only way to save the empire from the nationalist movements tearing at it from within. His enemies were not just outside the empire, they were inside it too. The Hungarian nobility despised him because his federalist plans would reduce their power. Austrian hardliners distrusted him because they saw accommodation with Slavic peoples as weakness. And across the border in Serbia, the most radical nationalists feared something even worse. They feared that if Franz Ferdinand succeeded, if he actually gave Slavic peoples a real stake in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the dream of a greater Serbia, a united Slavic nation, independent of any empire, would die before it ever had the chance to be born. A living, reforming Franz Ferdinand was more dangerous to Serbian nationalism than any military threat. A dead one was an opportunity. Now we need to talk about the men who decided to take that opportunity. Because the assassination of Franz Ferdinand was not the act of a lone fanatic. It was the product of a secret organization with deep roots in the Serbian military, years of violent history, and a willingness to use young men as weapons. The Black Hand, formerly known as Unification or Death, was founded in Belgrade in 1911. Its founding members were not dreamers or radicals on the fringes of society. They were Serbian military officers, men of rank and influence, men who had already demonstrated what they were capable of. Several of them had participated in the 1903 assassination of the Serbian king Alexander Obrenović and his wife, Queen Draga. The murders were not clean. The royal couple were shot repeatedly, their bodies mutilated, and then thrown from a second-floor palace window into the courtyard below. The officers responsible faced no serious consequences. Some were promoted. The message was clear. In Serbia's military circles, political murder was not a crime. It was a tool. The leader of the Black Hand was Colonel Dragutin Dimitrijević, known universally by his codename Apis. The Apis of ancient Egyptian mythology was a sacred bull, a symbol of divine power. The name suited him. Dimitrijević was physically imposing, politically ruthless, and absolutely convinced that Greater Serbia, a unified nation of all South Slavic peoples, carved from the crumbling empires surrounding them, was not just desirable, but inevitable, and that violence was the most reliable instrument of inevitability. He was also the head of Serbian military intelligence. He ran spies, he ran networks, he ran money, he ran men, and he understood something that more cautious politicians refuse to acknowledge. Empires do not reform themselves out of existence. They have to be pushed. The Black Hand operated through a cellular structure deliberately designed to limit exposure. Each cell knew only what it needed to know. Members were sworn in with rituals borrowed from Freemasonry, darkened rooms, drawn pistols, oaths of absolute loyalty. The penalty for betrayal was death. The organization had perhaps 2,500 members at its peak, spread through the Serbian military, the civil service, and the network of Serbian nationalist societies operating in Bosnia and across the Balkans. What it needed in the spring of 1914 was not more officers or more politicians. It needed young men without families to protect, young men without futures to risk. Gavrilo Princip was exactly that young man. He was born in 1894 in a small village in western Bosnia, the third surviving child of a postal carrier. His family was poor but not destitute. His father worked hard and believed in education. Princip was sent to school, first in Sarajevo, then in Belgrade, and he was bright enough that the investment seemed worthwhile. But Princip grew up sick. He was small and thin, prone to illness, and the tuberculosis that would eventually kill him was already quietly establishing itself in his lungs before he was a teenager. In a world that valued physical strength and military bearing, he was perpetually underestimated, perpetually dismissed. He read constantly. He absorbed the Serbian nationalist poets and the radical political pamphlets circulating through the student communities of Sarajevo and Belgrade. He read about the medieval Serbian kingdom and its destruction at the Battle of Kosovo. He read about the Balkan Wars of 1912 and 1913, in which Serbia had gained territory from the crumbling Ottoman Empire and shown that a small Slavic nation could fight and win. He read about the idea that Bosnia, occupied by Austria-Hungary since 1878 and formally annexed in 1908, rightfully belonged to the South Slavic peoples, and that the empire holding it was an occupying power. He tried to enlist in the Serbian army during the Balkan Wars. He was turned away for being too small. He tried to join a guerrilla unit. He was turned away again. Every institution that represented the cause he believed in told him he was not enough. He arrived at the Blackhand's network of contacts in Belgrade in 1913, 19 years old, burning with conviction and desperate to prove that he was more than his body suggested. He connected with Milan Ciganovic, a Blackhand operative who recognized immediately what Princip was and what he could be used for. In early 1914, Apis learned that Franz Ferdinand would visit Sarajevo on June 28th. The Archduke would inspect troops and ride through the city in an open motorcade. The route would be published. The security would be minimal. It was, from the perspective of a man who organized political violence for a living, an extraordinary opportunity. Apis decided to use it. He facilitated the recruitment and arming of a small group of conspirators, Princip among them, and arranged for their crossing from Serbia into Bosnia. The Serbian government's involvement remains disputed. Prime Minister Pasic almost certainly received intelligence suggesting something was being planned. He sent a vague diplomatic warning to Vienna that was so carefully worded it conveyed almost nothing. Whether this was deliberate calculation, genuine uncertainty, or simple cowardice, historians still argue. What is clear is that nobody in authority moved to stop it. The conspirators crossed the border, carrying pistols and grenades. They carried cyanide pills to take after the assassination so they could not be captured and forced to reveal the network behind them. They were given the Archduke's route. They were given their positions. 7 young men spread along a riverfront street in Sarajevo, waiting for a motorcade. June 28, 1914 was Vidovdan, St. Vitus Day, the anniversary of the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, the day the medieval Serbian kingdom fell to the Ottoman Empire. To Serbs, it was not merely a historical date. It was the wound that had never healed, the proof that empires could be destroyed and peoples could be erased, and the promise that one day the reckoning would come. The Austro-Hungarian authorities had been warned the visit was dangerous. They ignored the warnings or found them too vague to act on. The motorcade route had been published in the local newspapers. Security was minimal. The cars were open-topped. On the morning of June 28th, 7 conspirators positioned themselves along the Apple Quay, the main street running along the Miljacka River through the center of Sarajevo. Each one was armed. Each one had a position. Each one had a role. The motorcade came. The first conspirator lost his nerve and let the cars pass. The second lost his nerve and let them pass. The third, Muhammad Mehmed Bashik, stepped back into the crowd and disappeared. Then came Nedeljko Čabrinović. He did not lose his nerve. Čabrinović pulled the pin from his grenade, waited for the Archduke's open car to come level with him, and threw. He missed. The grenade bounced off the folded back roof of the convertible and exploded under the wheel of the following car. 2 officers were wounded. Bystanders were hit. Chaos erupted. The motorcade accelerated and raced toward the town hall. Čabrinović swallowed his cyanide pill and jumped into the Miljacka River. Neither worked. The pill was old and made him vomit. The river was only a few inches deep. He was dragged out by the crowd and beaten before police arrived. The remaining conspirators scattered. The motorcade had passed too fast. The mission had failed. Princip, standing at his assigned position further along the route, turned and began walking toward a nearby delicatessen on Franz Josef Street. The mission was over. He bought a sandwich. Inside the town hall, the reception for the Archduke proceeded with surreal formality. The mayor began a welcoming speech. Franz Ferdinand interrupted him, furious. His wife Sophie sat at his side, visibly distressed, her white dress pristine, the morning's near-death experience still sharp in the air. After the ceremony, Franz Ferdinand made a decision that was entirely human and entirely fatal. He wanted to visit the wounded officers at the hospital. He was a man who had just survived an assassination attempt. The dignified thing, the right thing, was to go and see the men hurt in the attack on his motorcade. General Oskar Potiorek, the Austrian military governor of Bosnia, agreed to the change of route. The motorcade would drive back along the Appel Quay to the hospital. Nobody told the lead driver. The lead driver turned onto Franz Josef Street, the original planned route, out of habit. General Potiorek, realizing the error, ordered the driver to stop and reverse. The driver hit the brakes. The engine stalled. The car sat motionless on Franz Josef Street. It had stopped less than 5 feet from the entrance to Schiller's delicatessen, where Gavrilo Princip had just stepped back out onto the pavement, sandwich in hand, the failed mission still bitter in his mind. He looked up. The Archduke was right there. Sophie was right there. The car was not moving. The engine was dead. No guards had dismounted. No one was watching the pavement. No one had anticipated this moment, because no one could have anticipated this moment. It was not a plan. It was not a strategy. It was the most terrible coincidence in modern history. Princip stepped forward. He raised the pistol. He fired twice. The first bullet struck Franz Ferdinand in the jugular vein. The second struck Sophie in the abdomen. The engine finally turned over, and the car lurched forward, racing toward the governor's residence. The Archduke slumped against his wife, whispering the same words over and over. "Sophie, don't die. Stay alive for our children." Sophie died first, before they reached the residence. Franz Ferdinand died minutes later, still in the car, still reaching for her. Princip was seized immediately by the crowd and beaten savagely before police pulled him away. He was 20 years old. Austro-Hungarian law prohibited the execution of anyone under 20 at the time of their crime. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He died in his cell in April of 1918, consumed by tuberculosis, his arm amputated from an infection, weighing barely 40 kilograms. 4 years into the war, his 2 bullets had helped ignite. He never fully understood the scale of what he had set in motion. In prison, he asked for newspapers and read about the war with a kind of horrified bewilderment. He had wanted to strike a blow for Serbian nationalism. He had not wanted millions of people to die. He said so more than once. It did not matter what he had wanted. What happened in the 37 days after the assassination is the story of how a murder becomes a world war. Vienna's first response was investigation. Austria-Hungary needed evidence before it could act. The investigation produced exactly what the hardliners in Vienna had hoped for. The trail of weapons, training, and border crossings led directly toward Serbian military intelligence, toward the Black Hand, toward Apis. Whether the Serbian government had authorized the assassination was debated then and is debated now. The evidence suggests that elements of the Serbian military establishment were complicit or willfully blind, that Prime Minister Pašić knew something was planned and did almost nothing to prevent it. Vienna decided that the distinction did not matter. Serbia would be held responsible. But Vienna could not act without knowing what Germany would do. The blank check changed everything. On July 5th and 6th, Kaiser Wilhelm II and his Chancellor Bethmann Hollweg met with Austro-Hungarian representatives and gave them unconditional German support for whatever action they chose to take against Serbia. Unconditional. Whatever action. A blank check drawn on the bank of German military power, signed without knowing exactly what it would be used to purchase. Germany's reasoning was cold and, in its own terms, internally logical. German military planners believed that a war against Russia was coming eventually regardless. Russia was in the middle of a massive military modernization program that would make it far more powerful by 1917 than it was in 1914. If war was inevitable, the Germans wanted to fight it now, while the odds were still in their favor. They also calculated, fatally incorrectly, that Russia might back down from defending Serbia rather than risk a major European war. Every part of this calculation was wrong, but the blank check had been signed. Vienna drafted an ultimatum to Serbia on July 23rd. It was 48 hours to respond, and it was deliberately designed to be unacceptable. Among its demands was that Austro-Hungarian officials be allowed to participate directly in Serbia's internal investigation of the assassination, effectively making Serbia a protectorate. Serbia accepted nearly every condition and offered to submit the rest to international arbitration. It was about as complete a capitulation as a sovereign nation could offer. Vienna declared the response insufficient. On July 28th, exactly 1 month after the assassination, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and the machine began to run. Russia could not allow Austria-Hungary to crush Serbia. Not because of sentiment, because of calculation. Russia saw itself as the protector of Slavic peoples in the Balkans. Allowing Vienna to destroy a Slavic nation without response would signal Russian weakness across the entire region, inviting further pressure from Austria-Hungary and Germany. Tsar Nicholas II ordered mobilization. Germany demanded Russia halt its mobilization. Russia refused. Germany declared war on Russia on August 1st. France was bound to Russia by the Franco-Russian alliance of 1894. France began mobilizing. Germany declared war on France on August 3rd. Germany's war plan, the Schlieffen Plan, required knocking France out of the war quickly before turning to face Russia in the east. The fastest route into France ran through Belgium. Germany demanded right of passage through Belgian territory. Belgium refused. Britain was bound by the 1839 Treaty of London to guarantee Belgian neutrality. Britain issued an ultimatum to Germany. Germany ignored it. Britain declared war on Germany on August 4, 1914. In 37 days, 2 gunshots on a Sarajevo street corner had produced declarations of war involving every major European power. The alliance system had done exactly what it was designed to do, and exactly what no one had truly believed it would do when they sat down and signed the treaties. It had made the war of one the war of all. The war that followed consumed everything it touched. The Ottoman Empire entered in October of 1914 on the German side, opening fronts across the Middle East that would redraw the map of that entire region. Bulgaria joined in 1915. Italy, initially neutral, switched sides and joined the Allies. Romania entered in 1916. The United States entered in April of 1917, tipping the balance of manpower and industrial production decisively toward the Allies. By the time it ended on November 11, 1918, the First World War had killed 17 million people and wounded 20 million more. Entire generations of young men from France, Britain, Germany, Russia, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire had been erased. The Battle of the Somme, fought between July and November of 1916, produced over 1 million casualties. The first day alone, July 1, 1916, remains the single bloodiest day in British military history. 60,000 British soldiers killed or wounded between sunrise and sunset. 4 empires collapsed before or shortly after the armistice: the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the German Empire, the Russian Empire, the Ottoman Empire. The world Franz Ferdinand had ridden through Sarajevo to represent was gone, not reformed, not restructured, gone. And it did not end in 1918. The peace settlement at Versailles imposed punishing reparations on Germany that created the economic desperation and national humiliation that Adolf Hitler would spend the next 20 years exploiting. The First World War paused in 1918. It resumed in 1939. And when it did, it killed 60 million more. 2 bullets on a Sarajevo street. 77 million dead across 2 wars. The number is almost impossible to hold in the human mind. Here is the question that has occupied historians for over a century. Was any of it inevitable? Some say yes. The alliance system, the arms race, the Balkan instability, the imperial rivalries. The room was so full of gas that some spark was going to light it eventually. If Princip had missed, or lost his nerve, or never been standing outside that delicatessen, something else would have provided the pretext. The war was looking for a reason. Others say no. Every step in the 37 days between the assassination and the British declaration of war was a human choice made by specific people who could have chosen differently. The Kaiser could have refused the blank check. Grey could have made Britain's position clear earlier and deterred Germany. Pasha could have shut down the Black Hand before the conspiracy ever left Belgrade. Franz Joseph could have accepted Serbia's near-total capitulation and chosen diplomacy. Any one of those different choices might have contained the crisis. The honest answer is probably both. The conditions for catastrophe existed. The spark was not inevitable. But once the spark landed in that particular room, with those particular alliances, those particular mobilization timetables, those particular leaders, the fire was very hard to stop. What is not debatable is the scale of the transformation. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand did not just start a war, it ended a world. The age of hereditary empires, of great powers playing chess with millions of lives, of a European order that had persisted in some form since the Congress of Vienna in 1815. All of it died between 1914 and 1918. Gavrilo Princip wanted to weaken an empire. He got that. Austria-Hungary was gone by November 1918. But so was the German Empire, and the Russian Empire, and the Ottoman Empire, and 20 million human beings, and the century of relative European peace that had preceded the war. He got what he aimed at, and everything else came down with it. There is one final detail about the assassination that refuses to be ignored. The car in which Franz Ferdinand was shot carried the license plate A31118. In the notation system of the time, that reads as Armistice, the 11th month, the 11th day, the 18th year. The armistice ending the First World War was signed at 11 o'clock on the morning of November 11th, 1918. Whether that is coincidence or something stranger is a question you can answer for yourself. What is not a coincidence is what those 2 shots actually represented. They were not the cause of the First World War, in any simple sense. They were the moment when a world that had been choosing war for 40 years finally ran out of reasons to pretend otherwise. A 20-year-old with a pistol and a sandwich did not destroy the world. The world had been building toward its own destruction for decades. He just happened to be standing in the right place at the most consequential wrong moment in modern history. And once those 2 bullets were fired, there was no mechanism, no treaty, no alliance, no emperor, no king, and no general anywhere in Europe wise enough or brave enough or powerful enough to stop what came next. Sometimes the most catastrophic events in human history do not begin with grand designs, or master plans. Sometimes they begin with a wrong turn, a stalled engine, and a young man stepping out of a delicatessen at exactly the wrong moment. If this story changed how you think about the First World War, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. Do you think the war was inevitable? Could any single different decision have stopped it? The debate has been running for over 100 years, and it is not settled yet. And if you learned something today, smash that like button so more people can find this channel.